I used to think garden trellises were just for roses and aesthetics. I was wrong. What you're looking at is actually the most aggressive food production system I've ever built in my backyard. Pound for pound, vertical crops don't just beat ground crops, they decimate them. Think about it. Zero rot, perfect airflow, and a harvest that literally hangs at eye level. No more crawling on the dirt. Today, I'm showing you 15 crops that belong in the air, including a few that, trust me, you never thought could climb. We're turning your fence lines into a grocery store. Let's get vertical. Starting with a real mind blower, the LUFFA. Most of you probably have one of these in your shower right now, thinking it came from the ocean or a factory. Nope, it grows on a vine, and it's actually a member of the gourd family. If you harvest these young, around 5 or 6 inches, they're a fantastic buttery vegetable. Think of a cross between a zucchini and a cucumber, but better at absorbing flavors. It's a staple in Asian cooking for a reason. But if you leave them on the trellis to mature and dry out, that's when the magic happens. You've just grown your own lifetime supply of organic, biodegradable scrubbing sponges. Now, LUFFAs are sun worshippers. They need a long, warm season, anywhere from 150 to 200 days. If you're in zones 7 through 11, you can go straight into the ground. But for my friends in the north, you must start these indoors 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost. These seeds have a shell like a walnut. If you plant them dry, you'll be waiting forever. Soak them in warm water overnight. It's the difference between a 3-day sprout and a 3-week struggle. And get a heavy-duty trellis ready. This vine will easily race up to 15 feet and drop dozens of sponges right into your lap. Why buy a plastic sponge when you can grow a feast and a cleaning tool on the same fence? Next up is a crop that literally makes neighbors stop and stare. Yard-long beans. Also known as asparagus beans, and they definitely live up to the name. Just look at this. These pods can reach up to 36 inches long. When they're hanging in pairs all over your trellis, it looks like your garden is covered in long green ribbons. Most regular green beans quit the moment the summer heat hits triple digits, but yard-long beans, they thrive in it. If you live in a hot, humid area like the South or even a warm zone 6, these are your midsummer survival crop. They grow so fast, you can practically see them racing up a 6-foot trellis in just a couple of weeks. Don't let the size fool you. They aren't just big beans. They have a complex, nutty flavor, somewhere between a classic snap bean and asparagus. The seed packets usually tell you to space them 6 inches apart. Honestly, I crowd them. I go about 2 to 3 inches apart. Since they're climbing vertically, they aren't fighting for ground space. Just give them some netting or twine to twist around and they'll do the rest. The more you pick them, the more they produce, so don't be shy with your harvest basket. If you're gardening in a small backyard, you know that spaghetti squash is usually a space hog. On the ground, these vines sprawl 10 feet in every direction, stealing all your real estate. But on a trellis, that same plant occupies just 2 square feet of ground. Think about the math. You're getting 20 pounds of food from a space no bigger than a doormat. Because the fruit hangs in the air, it ripens perfectly in the sun and never develops those rotted flat spots you get from ground contact. Since these fruits hit 4 or 5 pounds each, you have to support them. I use old mesh netting tied to the trellis. It acts like a hammock so the weight doesn't snap the vine. Don't just plant your seeds flat in the dirt. Build a small mound of rich soil about 6 inches high and plant into the top. This keeps the crown of the plant out of the moisture and practically eliminates root rot. Nutritionally, it's a game changer. High in vitamin C and fiber, but only about 40 calories per cup. It's basically a healthy pasta substitute that grows on a wall. While that squash is busy handling all that weight, there's another climber nearby that actually thrives when the sun gets dangerous. Malabar spinach. Most gardeners get frustrated because regular spinach bolts and turns bitter the second it hits 75 degrees. But Malabar spinach, it doesn't care about the heat. Full disclosure, this isn't actually a true spinach. It's a tropical vine, but the leaves taste remarkably similar, and they cook down exactly the same way. In my garden, this plant is a total beast, easily racing up 20 feet of trellis. Because it's a cut-and-come-again crop, you can harvest several pounds of greens all summer long from just a tiny 2-foot section of your fence. It stays lush and green when everything else in the garden is wilting. Take a look at these deep purple berries. They've been used as a natural food dye for centuries. If you want a salad bar that never quits and looks stunning with its deep red stems, this is the one you need. It's basically the immortal version of your favorite summer greens. Let's talk about a crop with production numbers that actually sound like a typo, the chayote. Some people call it the vegetable pear, but in my garden, I call it the king of the trellis. Here's the statistic that usually stops people in their tracks. One single plant can produce up to 100 fruits in a single season. For a family of 4, one well-placed vine is quite literally all you will ever need. It occupies the same amount of ground as a small coffee table, yet it will easily conquer 12 feet of vertical space. The planting process is where it gets really interesting. You don't look for a seed packet, instead you plant the entire fruit. Just push it into the soil, fat end down at an angle, leaving the narrow stem end just barely peeking above the surface. One important warning, get your trellis in place before you plant. This vine moves so fast you won't have time to figure it out later. Beyond the harvest, this is a true zero-waste crop. Across Latin America and Asia, the young shoots are eaten as gourmet greens, and you can even harvest the roots once the plant is mature. It's not just a fruit, it's an entire edible ecosystem hanging on your fence. After growing a high-yield monster like chayote, you might want something that brings a completely different kind of value to your trellis: bitter melon. Now, I'll be honest, this one is an acquired taste, and the name doesn't hide it. But across Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean, this is a deeply respected staple that has been part of traditional cooking for generations. This vine is a true heat lover. Once temperatures rise, it takes off, using delicate tendrils to climb up to 15 feet with ease. A healthy plant will typically produce around 10 to 15 textured fruits that hang down perfectly for easy harvesting. What makes it so fascinating is its unique metabolic properties and plant compounds. The real secret to enjoying it is all in the timing. You want to harvest the fruits while they're still young and bright green. At that stage, the bitterness is milder and far more balanced. When sautéed with garlic or added to a stir-fry, the flavor becomes complex and savory. If you want a trellis crop that stands out visually and handles heat like a champion, this is the one you need. Switching gears to a garden classic that almost everyone grows, but very few grow correctly: cucumbers. While the traditional way is to let them crawl on the dirt, training them vertically is a total game changer. The advantage here goes way beyond just saving space. When cucumbers hang free in the air, gravity pulls them into perfectly straight fruit, so you can say goodbye to those weird curled-up cucumbers hiding under the leaves. But the real win is plant health. By lifting them up, you're providing the massive airflow needed to fight off powdery mildew, the primary reason most cucumber crops fail by midsummer. Just a heads up though, make sure you're specifically planting a vining variety, not a bush type, or it won't have the instinct to climb. And here's a little spacing secret. While most experts recommend 12 inches of space, in my experience, you can go as tight as 6 inches on a trellis. Since the vines are heading up instead of out, they don't mind being close neighbors. It turns your fence into a solid, hydrating wall of vitamin K and silica, ensuring a clean, dirt-free harvest every single time.
Almost every gardener grows them, but the secret to getting a massive harvest in a tiny space is focusing on indeterminate tomatoes. Think of these not as bushes, but as aggressive vines. If you don't stop them, they'll easily climb 10 feet or more. While determinate types grow to a set height and then quit, these indeterminate varieties just keep producing until the first frost hits. But the trick to making this work on a trellis is pruning. If you focus the plant's energy into just 1 or 2 main stems, you are maximizing every square inch of your garden. From just 1 square foot of ground space, a well-managed vine can give you 20 to 30 pounds of fruit. It's essentially the highest ROI you can get in a vertical garden. We all know they're packed with vitamin C, but the real star here is lycopene, an antioxidant that actually becomes more potent when you cook them into a homemade sauce. Since we're already on the subject of that family, we have to talk about its cousin that almost everyone grows wrong, the tomatillo. Most gardeners treat these like a standard bush, letting them sprawl into a messy heap on the ground where the branches snap and the fruit gets lost in the dirt. What you should do instead is apply the same vertical logic we used for the tomatoes. Even though they aren't true vines, they are heavy-duty sprawlers that are practically begging for a support system. By using a Florida weave or even a basic cage, you're giving every branch access to full sun and keeping those paper-husked fruits off the damp soil. From just 4 square feet of space, a single supported plant can drop up to 100 fruits in a season. Just remember, you can't plant only one. Tomatillos aren't self-pollinating, so always plant them in pairs at minimum, or you'll have plenty of flowers but zero fruit. Moving from salsa ingredients to something much more substantial, we have the heavy hitters of the garden, winter squash. Whether it's butternut, acorn, or kabocha, these vines are notorious space hogs. On the ground, a single plant can easily steal 50 square feet of your yard, but on a robust trellis, that same plant only needs about 2 square feet of dirt. It's the ultimate space-saving hack. Because these fruits can get heavy, you can't just let them hang. Once they get past softball size, you need to make a fruit hammock using old mesh bags or cloth tied to the trellis. This supports the weight so the vine doesn't snap before the harvest is ripe. These are nutritional powerhouses, loaded with beta-carotene, and they get their name because they can easily be stored for up to 8 months without any refrigeration. Right alongside your winter varieties, you should be growing their more productive cousin, vining zucchini. Most people think of zucchini as a ground dweller that sprawls across half the garden, but certain Italian heirlooms, especially tromboncino, are natural climbers. Instead of forming a bush, they send out long, vigorous vines that are perfectly suited for a trellis. When you grow them vertically, everything changes. The plant gets better airflow, more consistent sun exposure, and far fewer disease issues from sitting on damp soil. This particular variety is also more heat tolerant and generally more resistant to powdery mildew than standard bush types, especially in hot, humid climates. A single healthy vine can easily produce 20 to 30 fruits over the course of a long season, continuing right up until the first frost. The texture is another advantage. The flesh is firmer than common zucchini and holds its structure much better when sautéed or roasted, instead of turning watery. Like all squash, they produce separate male and female flowers. That means pollination matters. If your garden doesn't have a lot of bees, hand pollinating can make a dramatic difference in fruit set. In early morning, simply use a small brush or cotton swab to transfer pollen from a freshly opened male flower to the center of a female flower. It takes less than 5 minutes, but in low pollinator conditions, growers often see a noticeable increase in the number of fruits that successfully develop. It's a small habit that can significantly boost your total harvest without adding any extra space.
While some crops on this list are exotic, you can't overlook the foundation of every vertical garden: pole beans. Unlike bush beans that produce all at once and then burn out, these are the marathon runners of the garden. They climb by naturally spiraling their vines around anything you provide, producing a rolling harvest from the bottom to the top for weeks. Most seed packets tell you to space these 6 inches apart, but you can easily cut that in half. Planting them every 2 to 3 inches actually creates a natural windbreak that the plants love. The biggest secret to a huge yield is consistency. These plants respond to demand. As long as you keep picking the pods while they're young, the plant continues pushing out new flowers, often doubling or even tripling your total yield over the season. Think of this as your garden's official kickoff crop: peas. While most vertical plants wait for the heat of summer, peas thrive in the cold. You can sow them weeks before your last frost, while the soil is still cool and the air feels barely ready for spring. They're also the most self-sufficient climbers on this list. With delicate tendrils that naturally grab onto netting or wire, they require almost no training to scale a trellis. But they're not just producing food. As members of the legume family, peas work with beneficial soil bacteria to fix nitrogen at their roots, enriching the soil as they grow and leaving it better for the crops that follow.
For a dense, productive wall, you can plant them close, about 1 to 2 inches apart, allowing the vines to weave together and support each other naturally. This humble plant also changed science forever. In the 19th century, Gregor Mendel used garden peas to uncover the fundamental laws of inheritance, laying the foundation for modern genetics. So when you're snacking on fresh peas in the spring, you're growing the same species that helped unlock the rules behind how traits are passed from one generation to the next. If you've ever avoided growing melons because they seem to take over the entire garden, vertical growing changes the equation completely. Trellising them is often easier than letting the vines sprawl unchecked across the ground. Small to medium varieties like cantaloupes or personal-sized watermelons are especially well-suited for vertical setups. With rich soil and proper support, a single plant grown in roughly 2 square feet of ground space can produce several high-quality fruits that never sit on damp soil. Once the fruits reach a pound or 2, adding a simple sling becomes essential. Mesh produce bags or strips of cloth tied to the trellis will cradle the fruit and prevent the stem from snapping under the weight as it matures. Beyond their hydration and natural vitamin A content, melons offer another advantage. They clearly signal when they're ready. With cantaloupes, you don't need to cut them open to check ripeness. At the full slip stage, the stem releases easily and the blossom end develops a sweet, musky fragrance that tells you it's time to harvest. To wrap up our list, we're ending with a plant many gardeners have yet to discover, the hyacinth bean. It may be the most visually striking climber you can grow. With deep purple stems, vivid violet flowers, and richly colored pods, this vine can reach 12 to 15 feet by midsummer, transforming any trellis or archway into a dramatic wall of color. But there is one critical safety rule. The mature beans must never be eaten raw. They contain naturally occurring compounds that require proper preparation to make them safe. Thorough boiling and correct cooking methods are essential before consumption. Once prepared properly, however, hyacinth beans have been used for centuries across parts of Asia and Africa as a protein-rich food source. The cooked beans provide plant-based protein along with iron, folate, and potassium. This isn't just an ornamental showpiece, it's a productive, nutrient-dense crop that proves your vertical garden can be both stunningly beautiful and genuinely practical. Vertical gardening is the ultimate way to get more food from less space while keeping your plants healthy and your harvest clean. Which of these 15 climbers are you adding to your garden this year? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more gardening secrets. Happy growing!